On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future.
Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. That was perhaps Justin Trudeau's shoddiest, most deplorable performance yet as Prime Minister, but we'll have more about that when we come back. We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. Justin Trudeau. Oh, before we get started, tariffs. I'm sure you've all heard. Off again. It's so funny. I was on Redacted yesterday when we were talking about tariffs, of course, and Justin Trudeau's crying and everything else, and Chrystia Freeland threatening to nuke the United States. But we had to update people on tariffs, and that seems to change every 6 hours, especially when the deadline approaches. But they're off again. Hopefully we can keep them off. We can have some real change at the border, and maybe we'll even have an election call by April. I think it's possible. But Justin Trudeau crying. How many times have we seen Justin Trudeau resort to tears to advance his political agenda? Well, he did so, of course, when he issued his apology to the LGBTQ crowd, because people during the 1950s lost their high-paying government and military jobs because in those days, it was a security risk to be a homosexual or anything else covered under the LGBTQ paradigm. That was a security risk, and those people were fired for legitimate reasons. Trudeau, of course, was overcome with emotion when he issued his apology in the House of Commons, but that's just one instance. He did it recently when he announced the decision for the Haida people of British Columbia. He was in tears about that. If there was a movie made about Justin Trudeau, it should be called All About Justin. Now, if any of you are film aficionados, as I am, you will know, of course, a 1950s Paramount production, or Fox, actually, it was Fox production of All About Eve, starring Bette Davis. In it, Bette Davis tears up the scenes in one of her greatest roles, actually, a fine performance. She almost won her third Oscar for that. If I'm not mistaken, she might have. But the point is, she used dramatic devices and artifices to promote herself. And it's all about an actress who's basically at the end of her career, because there's not a long career in the theater, unless, at least as a star. Then you have to find supporting roles when you pass a certain age. And Justin Trudeau, of course, is very reluctant to pass from star to supporting player. Very reluctant. And this is, of course, why he wants to go out with a bang. If he goes out at all, I'm still not convinced he's leaving us. But we will see. Because nobody knows how to carry on and chronically cross the line between reality and theater like this destitute Prime Minister. And that's Justin Trudeau in spades. And I find, what was he crying about, by the way? Oh, yes. Yeah. Apparently, Trump swore at him. The profanity in the Trump-Trudeau phone call happened during a heated exchange around dairy, according to a senior government source. The Wall Street Journal was first to report tensions reached the point of profanity. Even thinking about this altercation apparently brought Justin to tears. It was just too much to remember. There was another heated moment when the discussions came to fentanyl. Whoop, the F drug. I have to be very careful on YouTube about saying that word. So there you have it. Justin Trudeau. By the way, very interesting polls here, YouTube and X polls that I have that I have sponsored here. Who would be best to serve as prime minister given the tariff crisis here? The YouTube poll has 84% for Pierre Poilievre, and the X poll has 61% for Maxime Bernier of the People's Party of Canada. I find that very, very interesting. But of course, where is Justin Trudeau going from here? Do you wonder? Is he in fact resigning? Because he keeps saying there's going to be a transition period now between the end of the Liberal leadership vote on Sunday and the election of a new Liberal leader, and Justin Trudeau actually leaving the job as prime minister. Now, how long do you suppose that's going to take? Well, never, as I said, in the movie All About Justin, he might be planning a comeback and very reluctant to leave the stage as the star of that stage. Yes. And so, but of course, Eve Harrington is in the wings, and that's Mark Carney. But Mark Carney is a reptile. I don't mean in terms of, I mean in terms of his personality. He's about as engaging as a reptile. That's probably a terrible insult to reptiles. And if you own a reptile, my apologies. But Justin Trudeau, of course, does have one thing, plenty of personality. I would argue not a lot of intelligence, not a lot of reason, not a lot of good judgment, but loads of personality. And of course, that's something Mark Carney lacks in a large degree. He increasingly looks like a failed bureaucrat. So where are we going with Justin Trudeau? Let's have a look at this here. And once again, apologies for the microscopic text. See, the preparations are already underway, the National Post reports, for Justin Trudeau to leave.
Uncertainty in the situation, not just from what's going on in the White House, but also in Canada with your expected departure, possibly days away, and also pending an election. Are you worried about that having an impact on Canada's ability to continue negotiating with the United States? And are you considering playing some kind of caretaker role up to and including staying on as a caretaker PM for a bit?
No, I will not be. That I look forward to a transition to my duly elected successor in the coming days or weeks.
I'd like to hear more about that phone call with the president yesterday. I wonder if you can describe the tone, the tenor, the scope. I understand some profanity emerged in that call. Maybe you can explain the context in which that happened. Can you give us some color on that phone?
I can confirm that it was a colorful call. And it was also a very substantive call. We talked about a range of issues. Of course, primarily the trade war.
I want to maybe come back to that again. Certainly someone on the other side thought it important enough to note that profanity, that it was a heated exchange, to tell a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. And we're in the business, we know these things don't get out there by accident. There was a purpose, I assume, that the American side had. So can we get a sense of where did it become heated? Is it he doesn't accept the facts of the case? Tell us what's going on here.
I'm not going to get into it in details, but there were different sections of the conversation in which different approaches and tones. But I've been having conversations and working with Donald for over 8 years now, and a lot.
Justin Trudeau. Sorry, why does that happen?
The
Does
scope,
Justin Trudeau
I
not
understand.
realize? Does Justin Trudeau not
Today,
realize
I wondered-
that Donald Trump has been president not for 8 years, but apparently he's believing
Confirm
that
that
he
it
has
was a colorful call, and it was also a very substantive call. We talked about a range of issues, of course, primarily the trade war.
I want to maybe come back to that again. Certainly someone on the other side thought it important enough to note that profanity, that it was a heated exchange, to tell a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. And we're in the business, we know these things don't get out there by accident. There was a purpose, I assume, that the American side had. So can we get a sense of where did it become heated? Is it he doesn't accept the facts of the case? Tell us what's going on here.
I'm not going to get into it in details, but there were different sections of the conversation in which different approaches and tones. But I've been having conversations and working with Donald for over 8 years now, and a lot of it is rolling with it. A lot of it is figuring out how to move forward constructively despite certain unpredictabilities.
So, yeah, my apologies for our problems with that clip there, but that's you got the gist of it, did you not? And that is precisely what I'm really talking about. Is this is a guy who really he can't overrule the Liberal Party leadership vote. The president of the Liberal Party possibly could. The problem is Mark Carney is unraveling as fast as the election date approaches for the new leader. And if it's a good thing for Mark Carney, it's this Sunday, because if it lasts any longer, he would be nothing left of Mark Carney. There is so much revelation about Mark Carney's financial doings, his directorships on various boards, which he's claimed none of them are profitable, which is a lie. Why he moved his company to the United States, obviously in anticipation of his own policies forcing companies to go to the United States because of his carbon tax, corporate carbon tax, and his carbon tariff, which will force companies out of Canada to the United States. But does Justin Trudeau really have a game plan here? I think it's literally happening day by day. But let's watch again. This was the tour de force of that news conference where Trudeau once again said, I'm the center of attention and don't.
On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future.
I got you, babe. I got you, babe.
How comforting to know that Justin Trudeau has your back. It's funny how he hasn't had my back in 10 years, or yours. He's been taxing us to death, telling us we can't raise our children, making Canada the suicide capital of the world through the medical assistance in dying program, otherwise known as euthanasia or murder. He's been up to all kinds of things. But he's hanging on till the bitter end. I want to briefly talk about this federal court decision. I'm going to find this. Federal court dismisses the challenge to Prime Minister's decision to prorogue Parliament. This came in very late last night, about 9:30. Now, why a judge would wait till 9:30 to issue this, I have no idea. Except perhaps he hoped nobody would notice on a Thursday night. Well, that's if you know the rules of communication, you do that Friday afternoon, Friday night, because nobody will notice. At least that was the case in the old days when the journalists packed up for the weekend. People do notice today. This is deeply troubling, a deeply, deeply troubling decision. And it's very interesting what the comments were here. Trudeau was within his rights to prorogue Parliament. Federal Court says in historic ruling. Yes, this is very historic indeed. And I'll tell you why. Because Chief Justice Paul S. Crampton of the Federal Court released his decision. And what did he say? In that decision, Chief Justice Crampton stated the applicants failed to demonstrate that the Prime Minister exceeded any of the limits established by the written Constitution or by the unwritten principles they identified. Now, I would submit, dear listeners, that this is a highly problematic and a very and deeply disturbing decision, because it effectively means that any government of any political stripe, and I'm not going to say it's okay for the Conservatives to do it, just not the Liberals. No, it's not okay for any government to prorogue Parliament simply because it's inconvenient to have Parliament to continue sitting because it's going to get in their legislative way, or it's going to get in their way of getting another term of office, which is precisely what Justin Trudeau did this for. He knew the government was on the verge of being defeated. He knew he had to do something to keep the Liberals in power. He had to prorogue Parliament for that reason alone. It was all about sustaining the Liberal Party as the governing party of Canada. That's all it was about. And the supremacy of Parliament was forgotten. It became the supremacy of the executive branch, namely the Prime Minister and his cabinet, over the legislative branch. Now, I'm no lawyer, but anyone who's even been through high school and understands responsible government knows that there's something called the supremacy of Parliament, which, of course, we've long forgotten in this country because we have a executive system of government that essentially lords it over the legislature and a judiciary that makes up its own mind about questions and overrules Parliament. And we have no separation of powers between these branches of government like they do in the United States. We still have a Westminster parliamentary system with appointed judges and an increasingly powerful executive branch of government. And this decision reinforces all of that. It makes the executive branch supreme, takes away parliamentary supremacy. That is my comment and my thoughts on this. And I invited one of the lawyers arguing against this on the show today. I understand he's on vacation today. He wasn't able to do it, but James Manson with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, who was on this show when they decided to back up this court challenge, and he explained why. So I might have James on again to talk about what this means for Canada. I think it's devastating. I want to move to something that's really quite comical. And this is interesting because in the United States, of course, Donald Trump is increasingly popular. And the mainstream media, read MSNBC, CNN, CNBC, all of these cable news networks that nobody watches. Well, not nobody, but fewer and fewer people are watching. Largely because they've gone to social media. They've gone to independent media. They watch shows like Redacted. They watch Joe Rogan. And hopefully some of them watch me as well. But in the United States, what the media is doing is reaching out to the Trudeau government, to Justin Trudeau, and people like Melanie Joly, looks great on camera, often doesn't have a clue what she's saying. But this is what the mainstream media in the United States is doing. They're reaching out to Canadian politicians to attack Donald Trump. And of course, what's the net effect for Canada? Donald Trump says, there they go again. There's that damn foreign affairs minister on CNN bad-mouthing me. There's Justin Trudeau on a talk show again, bad-mouthing me. So it's a weird symbiotic relationship. The U.S. media are using Canadian politicians. Canadian politicians are using the left-wing media in the States to attack Donald Trump. And they both love it. Here's Melanie Joly. Here's a perfect example. This is Christine Amanpour, who is enough to make your stomach turn. She, of course, had very close relations with Democratic governments in the past. But here she is with Melanie Joly.
Fundamentally, less than 1% of fentanyl actually comes from Canada to the US. We know that there's a scourge of fentanyl in North America. We know that too many Canadians and American lives are being taken by this catastrophic drug. But fundamentally, we have a very strong and secure border. We have $1.3 billion worth of investment in our new border plan. We've invested in more boots on the ground, Black Hawk helicopters, a new fentanyl strike force with the Americans. We also have a new fentanyl czar. We've done everything that was required under the executive order that President Trump signed to legitimize, to give him the powers to impose these tariffs. But clearly, this is not the issue right now. This is a pretext. This is not the right argument, because fundamentally, the US is a net exporter of illegal migrants, of illegal guns, and illegal drugs to Canada. So what is at stake is more than that. President Trump wants to put us into a state where we are much more weakened economically in order eventually to annex us. He said that. He's questioned our border as well. So while we've been working on the diplomatic level and working with many of his secretaries, working with him, and I've been involved in all of this, of course, with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, Dominic LeBlanc, here in Canada, it was important for Canadians and the world to know what is exactly happening. And when the US decided to launch this trade war this week, well, we decided to make it public.
You know, Prime Minister Trudeau was caught on a hot mic or whatever saying to people, this is real, this threat to annex Canada and make it a 51st state. I mean, most people thought that was just a joke. It's a negotiating ploy. It's whatever it is. It's Trump being Trump. Why do you think it's serious? Why would America want to do that? And how can you stop them?
You see what's going on here? I mean, it's quite plain. It's a symbiotic relationship. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. CNN says, come on, Melanie Joly, attack Donald Trump, say he wants to take over Canada, annex Canada, and we can both have a great time criticizing Donald Trump. Unfortunately, there's repercussions for Canada. And CNN is actually getting its biggest numbers right now. If you look at the numbers CNN's getting online, they're getting the numbers of an average YouTube station. These interviews with Canadian politicians are actually getting them huge numbers. And that's what this is all about, too, of course. Yes, of course, it's about trying to stay alive. CNN is increasingly irrelevant, as is Melanie Joly and Justin Trudeau. They're irrelevant as well, increasingly. But when they get together, they try to make each other look more relevant, like they actually matter anymore. Now, who should be on talk shows? Who should be on podcasts? Who should be on broadcasts like mine? Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Where's Pierre Poilievre? Well, I'm going to show you a clip in a minute, which I found just knocked me over. I couldn't believe this because, of course, last week, after interviewing Alberta Premier Daniel Smith, I talked to a couple of people I know in Pierre Poilievre's communication office. And I said, I would really love to have Mr. Poilievre on next week. I said, he's known me for many years. He knows what I'm all about. And I even said, here's the questions I'd like to ask. And I promise I won't talk about foreign policy. I just want to talk about domestic policy because I know they don't want to talk about Ukraine on conservative broadcasts. And I thought, well, if we just stick to taxes, that bring it home tax cut, if we just stick to economic fiscal policy. There's no reason why Pierre Poilievre wouldn't want to come on the show, because I'm very much in agreement with his desire to cut foreign aid, to cut taxes, cut regulations, build more homes with the private sector. Very much in agreement with that. I'm not in agreement with his Ukraine policy, but I'm quite willing to say, hey, we'll talk about that some other time. I got an email back saying this is not an appropriate time to do this. Well, as I found out, that's been the response to every YouTube broadcast or Rumble broadcaster or anyone out there as independent media. I think he's done one show with Peterson. Yeah. But anyway, here's Patrick Bet David. Like him or not, he offers some very good advice to Pierre Poilievre. And I found it fascinating that Patrick Bet David, huge audience in the States and Canada, wanted Pierre Poilievre on the show. And apparently his communication people said, forget it. And not only did they say, forget it, they were dismissive. We don't need you. Pierre, you need good publicity. Or do you have a communications department that's telling you there's no such thing as bad publicity? Well, I'll tell you, that might be true if you're a punk rock, if you were a punk rocker in the 70s, or you're a avant-garde musician today. No, there's no such thing as bad publicity. But if you're a politician trying to become the Prime Minister of Canada, there is such a thing as bad publicity. Let's listen to Patrick Bet David for a while here.
Like most Canadians, friends welcomed him for that vacation. He took two, not one, but two private jets paid for by the taxpayer, burning 100 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Go back, Rob. So now go all the way to the top, if you could, and just type in podcast next to him. And do me a favor, eliminate his first name, just put Poilievre podcast, and go to filters and go to views. And let's see what podcast he's done. Okay, zoom in. 18? So Jordan Peterson 2 months ago, 5 million. He needs to do that once every other month. Okay, keep going lower. Specific to podcast. Keep going. That's another Jordan Peterson from 2 years ago. It's the only one he does. Keep going lower.
None.
Keep going lower.
He's eating an apple.
Keep going lower. Keep going lower.
Nothing.
Keep going lower.
Nothing.
Keep going lower. Another Jordan Peterson. Keep going lower. Keep going lower. Keep going lower. Other people are talking about him. Yeah. So guess what? You can be as talented as you want and as strong as you want, and you think you've won without earning the right to win. You don't believe in capitalism. You just want it to be handed to you. I'm sorry, Canadians. You need a better candidate that's willing to work their asses off to make Canada great again. And this guy didn't want to work. I watched him give messages. I'm like, what a great message. Get your ass in front of cameras. Didn't want to do it. Go talk to people. Pierre Poilievre campaigned the same exact way as Kamala Harris did. When it comes down to campaigning, not policies, he is Kamala Harris. Pierre, your hero that you guys wanted, does not want to work. I hope Canadians see this and send it around and blast him and encourage him to go talk to the biggest podcast in Canada. He's not too good for podcasts in Canada. He's only talking to Jordan Peterson. Go talk to the people. You say you want to be a man of the people? Go be the man of the people. That's what Millet did. That's what others did. Locked up behind camera just talking to Jordan Peterson and mainstream type of people. This is 2025. A 78-year-old man did laps around you. And he went and took it from the other guys with all the games they played. You just want to sit there, play easy. Very disappointed. The reason why I'm disappointed is because I love the people of Canada. Mm-hmm. We have so many great friends in Canada. I have so many memories of going to Canada, going to Lake Louise, staying at the Chateau Fairmont Hotel in Lake Louise, or going to Banff, or going to Toronto to eat at the restaurant, Goodfellas that had some incredible burrata cheese with the owners, bringing out to me the pizza that they would make in a little mobster-looking type of a restaurant, or going and doing business with people like at Forrester's Insurance Company that for many, many years we sold more policies at Forrester's in Canada than any other insurance company in the world. Some incredible people when I would go out there, have a great time. One time I read in it, I bought an RV. I went from LA to Miami to Toronto to San Francisco, back to LA, We had such good times in Toronto. I am so disappointed in a lack of fight that Pierre showed outside of just getting on mainstream media. You had such a big opportunity. Canadians, hold your candidates accountable. There is no such thing as competition that is going to be handed to you in no space, not business, not politics, not sports, not church, not military, in nothing. What a disappointing of a performance by a candidate to not show up. What a disappointing of a performance. I'm not even Canadian. I shouldn't give a shit. And I'm like, he should go on that show. Canadians are texting me, hey, what do you think about this guy? He's great, but he's not working hard enough. Well, what do you mean? You should give him a second chance. He's not working hard enough. Give me a flipping break. You had an opportunity to get in there and change the policies up. No, you didn't. You need a fighter, man, no matter what the place is. Anyways, I can't believe we're going to finish on Canada. We're going to finish on Canada. That's what we're going to be doing, right? To all the Canadians out there, we love you. And hold them accountable. And I have a feeling he will never come on the podcast. Pierre will never come on this podcast. Never come on this podcast because he wants to only go to places that's controlled. Safe. It's these politician control safe places they want to go to. So there you go. Hold them accountable. Anyways.
Yeah, that's good advice. And once again, I'm not working against Pierre Poilievre becoming the next prime minister. I think he's got the best possibility of doing that, obviously, with a largely conservative agenda. But my God, he had better do more than just assume he deserves it. You have to work for this. And you cannot dismiss small c conservative media because you think they're in your pocket, because they think they won't have the balls to criticize you, because you think they're going to ignore the stupid things you say, the bad policy decisions you make, and the idiocy that you continue to talk about Ukraine, the World Economic Forum, and net zero and other failed policies. Why isn't Poilievre talking about pulling Canada from the World Health Organization? Why isn't Poilievre talking about pulling Canada from the Paris Environment Accord? Why? Why isn't he? He needs to engage more with independent media, small c media, and he cannot just dismiss them because that is just unacceptable. He needs these people, especially when don't underestimate the Liberals to steal elections. Don't underestimate the Liberals to think they're gone, they're defeated. They have risen before because they play dirty and they know how to fight. They're on U.S. news right now, fighting back. And where's Pierre Poilievre? Talking the same talking points as Justin Trudeau on Ukraine and on the tariffs. Hit back hard. Yeah, right. And we're going to end up with 75% tariffs if we do that, which Maxime Bernier pointed out on this show this week are nothing more than taxes on Canadians. That's what countered reciprocal tariffs add up to. So that is I think Patrick Bet-David was saying, he hopes Canada gets rid of the Liberal government too. And he hopes Pierre Poilievre becomes the next prime minister because he's the one in a position to be so. And Maxime Bernier has told me in the past, he knows Pierre Poilievre will be the next prime minister of Canada. Well, at least he said that when Pierre Poilievre was 25% ahead in the polls. But that doesn't mean we can't continue to be a check on him from the right. And we need to do that. Conservative media, small c conservative media, and I say again, I am in the pocket of no politician, no political party. I fight for justice, truth, and the American way. I fight for justice and truth and fundamental libertarian and small c conservative policy. And that's what I always stand up for. But we have to always criticize politicians when they let us down. Otherwise, they will continue to let us down. We're not here to be communications personnel for any political party. And any so-called journalist out there who has a YouTube station and thinks, oh, I can't criticize Pierre Poilievre because that means the Liberals will win. No, that means the Conservative Party will become more liberal. Happens every time. I've been in this business for 35 years. It happens every time. When you don't insist conservatives act like conservatives, you end up with Aaron O'Toole. That's what happens. And we don't want Pierre Poilievre ending up looking like Aaron O'Toole, do we? My little pep talk for today. Thanks for listening to that. Jeffrey Rath, he was on the show yesterday. Fox News just ran this morning. I found this fascinating. I wanted to share it with you.
The 51st state, and a group in Alberta is apparently on board. Jeffrey Rath is leading that group, a lawyer from Alberta. He has that delegation behind him. Jeff, how big is your delegation? Tell me the feeling you are for joining America.
Hundreds of Albertans that are reaching out and volunteering to join our delegation. Right now, our group is very small. It's a steering committee of people that are looking to come to Washington on an exploratory basis and meet with a representative appointed by President Trump to explore the benefits of either Alberta becoming an independent sovereign nation with economic union to the United States, becoming a U.S. territory, or pursuing full statehood.
How is
those
Canada,
are our goals.
How has Canada lost their way? How has Canada lost their way that makes you think you got to join us?
Trudeau and Carney, are all wringing their hands over the tariffs. They're going to be kicking Albertans in the teeth and bringing in a 21% carbon tax increase in April. This is, the carbon tax itself is just an insult to hardworking Albertans that can't afford to heat their homes and can't afford diesel and gas for their cars and trucks to go to work. That's a big part of why it is that people in Alberta are fed up with being governed, by idiotic politicians from Quebec and Ontario.
Anyway, I apologize for the poor sound quality in that, but it's interesting how this story has gone crazy on social media, and it was originally covered, I must say, by a good friend of mine from Alberta, Rachel Parker, who spent a lot of years at True North. I think she's an independent journalist now, and she originally did this story, and it's because of her ex-post that went viral that I decided to reach out and interview Jeffrey Rath for my show. And I think that was a very successful episode. I hope all of you watched it. And he's getting tremendous coverage now all over, because this is quite a thing. A delegation from Alberta going to Washington to meet with Donald Trump to petition him for Alberta to become the 51st state. Now, is it a pipe dream? Is it just crazy? Is it a stunt? Well, this is how desperate people are in Canada right now, because thanks to Justin Trudeau and thanks to a lackluster opposition, we need better. Canada can do better. I know we can. I've seen it. And so let's continue to resolve the results. I'll be back in a minute here with some concluding remarks. I was just going to get this off. Yeah, I think it's some of the best gear out there. I love this material. Have a look at the store. I'm using the mug right now. I love this mug. This is great. This is great stuff. We've got the sweatshirts. We've got the hoodies. We've got the t-shirts. We've got the mugs. We've got the ball caps. We've got the toques. Have a look. I think it's really worth getting. The show, and it's not just about Krayden's right. It's not just about stand on guard. It's about your adherence, your allegiance to conservative policies, because you believe in the future of this country. So thank you for watching today. Let's hope that the movie All About Justin is reaching a finale and in a close this Sunday. But let's hope Canadians aren't fooled by this guy named Mark Carney, who is worse in so many ways than Justin Trudeau. And that's why we have to continue to resolve to resist. Thanks for watching today, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow, same time, to give you more of the news you need to know.